What an introduction. I feel like Rocky Balboa. Huh? Okay, somebody told me people from Hamburg are not funny. I have to say it's not true, but most of you are not from Hamburg, I found out. Okay. All right, so, yeah, I've got only 20 minutes. I'll speed up, which is difficult for me. I'm not allowed to talk about my projects. That's good, because I don't want to. My lecture is called I Am, obviously. And I'll tell you the story of my life. Wow. I will do that in a very classical architectural way. I will just show you floor plans and pictures. Sorry for that. Yeah. So it will be 19 floor plans with some data and some pictures. So actually, it will be all the floor plans I've been living in so far. So it will be all my homes. And I'll show you some pictures, and then I'll tell you a little bit what I've learned from that sort of apartment. So you might find out why I am what I am. And then, yeah, architects, not architecture. So first floor plan. As you can see, it has a bit of limited ceiling height, but obviously it was equipped with a lot of comfort, and it did what a shelter should do. It protected, you know, from weather and winds. There was also affordable, actually, yeah, and it came with a kind of social package, I'd say, so almost all-inclusive. I liked it very much. From the outside, it looked like this. It's my mother, don't laugh, yeah? From the inside, looked like that, yeah? So what did I learn about this? Well, living is a basic need, yeah. We should not forget that. And beauty and comfort is obviously very important when it comes to living. Sorry. Second, honestly, I forgot. I can't remember what it looked like, so this is just somebody told me, apparently 250 ceiling height. Probably because, you know, like moving is a very traumatic moment, I found out. People always like to stay where they are. Very often, people don't want to change where they grew up. And I guess so happened to me. It was quite nice where it was before. Anyhow, so let's go to the next one. The next one is a kind of interesting floor plan because it's rather small, bigger than the first one, but it still has a kind of strange ceiling height. As you can see, 1974, so you can calculate how old I am. Anyhow, we've been three, becoming probably more. As you can see, the orientation sign with the north arrow, it seems like spinning in all sort of directions. It's a kind of strange apartment, but as you might have noticed, living, eating, and cooking happened outside. So I really enjoyed it a lot. It was a very, very important experience for myself because honestly, like living almost in nature and the freedom of choice in terms of where you live, where you stop, where you actually set up your home spot, I think is of great value actually. And I honestly have to say that I'm very intensively connected to nature. I think that comes from that time, and I think it's rather true saying that as humans we cannot really survive in the absence of nature, and we should always keep that in mind when we are planning future cities, especially if we densify them more and more. Number 4, maybe the first sort of standard apartment. Actually, already quite a nice apartment, I have to say. 100 square meters for a young family, you know, already quite decent. And if you look here, you can see there is 2 children rooms, which is rather important because, as you can see, it's 4 inhabitants at some time. So I got a sister. It's a rather important moment in the life of a young man because things change. But as you also can see, there's 2 balconies, and these 2 balconies, they are important because that's the way it looked from the outside. So it's kind of prefab slab settlement in the outskirts of Innsbruck. You have to know, my father was a tax inspector, and they built like a settlement just for people working for the government. So there were policemen and tax people, and rather monocultural settlement, so not very good in terms of diversification. Anyhow, the public space in between, of course, was equipped with sandboxes, and I liked to play in these sandboxes. And I remember there was a guy, we called him White Thomas because he had really white hair, and he was one of these naughty kids, you know, you don't like, because they throw sand into your eyes and they destroy your sand castles. So he really killed the fun in the sandboxes for me in this kind of public space. But one night, you know, I found out that these balconies, they are rather cool, and I went down at night and stole some sand of the sandboxes, brought it up to the balconies, and found out that private outdoor space is something of great value, especially if you don't like your neighbors. Yeah, that's a picture of the better times. Thomas was still nice, but things change, you know. So private outdoor space, very important for housing. Next apartment, you know, we moved from Innsbruck to Linz for some private reasons, doesn't matter. But first, only 1 children room, rather like a great loss for me because I had to go back and share the room with my sister. But if you look at this floor plan, it's rather interesting, especially if you look at this kind of central undefined room. It's a room with 4 walls. That's not very special at all, but it's a room with 4 walls and 8 doors, and that makes it kind of special because it's not so easy to manage to design something like this, I'd say. And the fact is, if you have a room with 8 doors of that size, there's no space to furnish this room because where you want to put the furniture, there's no space. Yeah? So this room was not important for any of the family, you know, from the outside 80s building. But became really important for myself because since I told you I had to share the space with my sister, and then, you know, another sister emerged. So it's been 3 of us in 1 room. But since this central space was of no interest of anybody of my family, I kind of conquered that space. And I just moved my room into that kind of central space, and I found out that if you live in sort of time shifts, you really can use spaces, or you can program them double, you know, like superimposing programs into 1 space, making an entry space into a valuable children room. That's already a rather really cool floor plan, I thought. Very well done. It's actually been done by a quite well-known Austrian architect, Roland Reiner. You for sure might know him. And it's situated in Puchenau, so some of you might know this village outside of Linz. As you can see, 2 children rooms, quite nice, huge balcony. I remember, like, this is my kids' room. You know, my parents didn't want us to watch TV too much, but I remember that I had a window here, and there was the window of the balcony door, and here was the television. So at night, I was very often sitting here and spying at the TV, not getting any sound but the pictures, you know. TV is about pictures. So anyhow, this was a really good cut apartment, and as I told you, Roland Reiner designed this car-free city. In the 70s, the first phase was built, in the 80s, the second, and then at late 80s, the third one. And it's really nice, situated between these rather this high traffic road and the river Danube, and in between, it's all free of cars, you know. So you have like multi-story dwellings, low-rise, densified living, patio houses, and for us kids, it was a great experience because the parents were just not afraid of letting us outside, so we really could run around and felt quite free. So I'd say this made me a great fan of getting rid of the cars out of our public spaces and bring back public space to the walking people rather than to the cars. Yeah, I felt quite proud, I'd say. So we moved to Vienna into a house. First time in a house, actually, 2 stories. That was quite big. 170 square meters is rather big for living, even if it's 5 people. And I moved with my little sister, as you have seen her before. I moved with her into that kind of configuration, which turned out not to be a good idea. My other sister, she chose that room, which was way better idea. Not just because we didn't have a door in between us, it was just this kind of strange wall, but my younger sister, she was clever enough to understand the value of this room, because as you can see, you enter in the ground floor. The entry hall was big enough to do table tennis there, so you don't need a balcony if you have like a room for table tennis. So anyhow, once you got up, there was a little side door getting into this little working room, and from this side door and the working room, you could access this space. And getting a bit older, into puberty, and you know, you start to come home late, this became a really important detail. And me, myself, you know, I'd always had to pass the kitchen and all this next to the bed. So anyhow, my sister always was a bit smarter than me. So cannot show you any pictures of that time, but there's one thing I remember. My parents bought a painting, you might know it. Turned out it's just a print, it's not the painting, but anyhow, I liked it a lot, and for some reason I fell in love with Art Deco, not really time, but fonts, you know, the kind of writing, for whatever reason, I don't know. And I was the master in designing all the Christmas packaging by myself, you know, just taking paper and writing these nice letters in these Art Deco fonts. And all the relatives out of the sudden said, "This boy has to become an architect for sure. Yeah, he's so talented, look at him." And so probably Gustav is the reason why I'm here tonight, standing in front of you. You know, sometimes things happen like this. Actually, it was a coincidence that I started studying architecture. Had to do with this font writing. So, the great time, you know, moving out from home, one of the best moments at that time, you know, leaving your parents behind, also leaving all the comfort of laundry and food behind. But moving into a typical Viennese floor plan, which is called room, kitchen, closet, you know. Actually, this apartment is built out of 2 of these units, and it was affordable for us at that time. You know, I started studying architecture. My sister was still in school. Nevertheless, the 2 of us lived in that apartment. Then she moved out. Then she moved in again. Then a friend of her moved in, and my girlfriend moved in, and then all of them moved out. So a lot of coming and going, and from the outside looked a bit like this. That was the view into the courtyard, but it didn't matter, you know. It did not matter. It just was ours, you know. And you can see already first kind of architectural expressions being done inside, interior design, and we loved it, you know. We've been the first of our friends who had their own apartment, and all of them, they came like every day in the morning, ditching school, knocking at the doors, saying, "Can we come?" And I said, "I have to study, sorry, I'm a serious student." "No, we just watch TV, we don't disturb you." So, anyhow, I loved it a lot. So, what did I learn? Yeah, I learned that your own makes a difference if it's your own. So we should think about renting or property, I don't know. Then studying, of course, involves, you've heard, I studied at the McGill University, so I had to do an exchange year to Canada. I was absolutely serious student, totally motivated going there, you know, over the big water into Northern America. You know, I was really convinced I will only study there. Yeah, that's all what matters. I also went there to visit a friend in Toronto. I forgot about finding an apartment. I didn't really care. And then I found out, oh, I need to find an apartment. Of course, all the apartments were gone when I came to Montreal. So I didn't find an apartment. Well, I found an apartment. I found a bargain. 13 square meters, ceiling height just beyond legal, I think. I'm not sure. The floor plan is rather interesting because, as you can see, the toilet is internally accessed, but the bathroom was from the outside, so kind of strange. It had a rather big entrance area and then a little niche for living. Yeah, living, kitchen, sleeping, working. But that was not so bad, actually, about the apartment. The really bad thing was there was only one tiny little window for this apartment, yeah? This. So the facade is actually quite nice, a little dirty, but so from the outside looked like this, from the inside felt like this, I have to say. Yeah? So, you know, after 2 months, I knew this is not going to work for any longer. I need to find another place, and luckily there were other exchange students. So there was a Frenchman, and I made friend with him, Arnaud, and of course Arnaud lived in a little loft as a Frenchman with style, you know. And he felt sorry for me, and once he offered me to move into his little loft, so we could share the rent, which was a good idea. So a nice floor plan, actually. Only one problem, okay, there was just sleeping for him, and I had to sleep in the living room, which in fact is not such a big problem. But, you know, there is a certain reputation about the French, and Arnaud was really a very handsome, attractive guy. So, you know, from the outside, like Georgian style, from the inside, Arnaud. This is my bed. Yeah, the computers at that time, basis there. You know, Alpine style for myself. So, to be honest, I didn't sleep a lot. He was coming and going with different people almost every night. I was very jealous, I have to say. But he was a really nice guy. I like him a lot. So I found out, you know, different cultures require probably different planning, even in simple housing floor plans. Yeah, okay, so yeah. Studying was very serious at that time. There's a model made out of spaghetti noodles, a tower for Montreal, I remember. After that, I went to Amsterdam, actually just for holidays. I fell in love with a girl after 3 days, and I decided to stay there because she's the love of my life, at that time at least. And I was lucky because Friedrich, one of my partners now, he used to work at NL Architects, and I took over his job and I took over his apartment because he went home to Vienna, so we just exchanged. So I got this apartment, which is rather really like a treasure in Amsterdam, as you might know. It's also small, you know, like in Montreal, but it has a big, big difference. You know, the Dutch are really smart. They do small apartments, but they do huge windows. And then they do little terrace in front of the window. And then suddenly, it doesn't matter that it's small, because you don't really realize the threshold between the inside and the outside. And this is not just because of Dutch things, you know, that change your perception. It's really expanding not just the mind, but also the perception of the space. So from the outside, of course, Amsterdam, gorgeous. And here's this terrace, you know. Yeah. So, okay. It was a little bit Dutch mind exploding even the photo. So, size matters, of course, but you can work even with small spaces and make them appear a little bit bigger. Just blend the borders. Then I went to London to study at the Bartlett for a year, and we had a great house, like unbelievable, you know, like 4 floors, hundreds of rooms, thousands of people living there, like 13 people, honestly. It doesn't really fit with the number of the rooms, but it was affordable at that time, I have to say. Maybe there was one point, it was Kingsland High Street, actually it's called. And those of you who know London know it's in the 4th zone of the tube, so it's rather outside. And you know, London is quite expensive. If you have to travel from the 4th zone to the center, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And the problem of this house was the location, you know, because it was in an area where honestly at night nothing happened. There was no cinema, there was no pub, there was just nothing, yeah, for some reason. So, you know, we were 13 people living in the house, so actually there was enough entertainment in the house, but not enough. So we said, okay, if the entertainment is not outside, let's bring the entertainment into the house, and we invited all our friends, you know, from university, because we had a huge house, and they came, you know. And this is really my photo, yeah. The problem is, you know, they came, but not all of them left again. And it was always those you didn't like. Yeah. Okay, actually, I like him. He's a good friend of mine, yeah. But, so I found out location is really important, and the context, you know, matters. So I went back from London, you know, I had enough of living with lots of people. I decided I want to be free, you know. I don't need anything because, you know, it was 2000, the time of mobility, laptops, iPods, you know, everything was urban nomad. So I said, I live nowhere or everywhere, you know. I don't need an apartment, yeah. It's all in your mind. You know, it looked, for me, it looked like this paradise on earth. I had enough friends in Vienna, luckily, so, you know, I slept here and there. Sometimes I went into bars, hoping the girl fell in love with me and invited me to her place. I mean, could you resist at that time? So, anyhow, reality was hard as a bone, I have to say, yeah? Looked like this. So, finding out, not having a place to stay, and I mean, I did it voluntarily, is a hard thing. So again, yeah, it's a basic need we should never forget. So after that experience, I said, okay, come on, I'm an architect. Yeah, at that time I was already an architect. I had my own office with my friends. We were earning loads of money, as you can imagine, in the beginning. So I moved into a loft, a big chance, 185 square meters. Wow. Of course, not affordable for myself, but, you know, I had friends, so I said, come on, guys, let's move together. This is an opportunity. You know, we move in, we build boxes, and we create different zones of space, and everybody has, like, his own space inside this great loft. from the outside looked like this. Of course, you know, we run out of money, we run out of energy, we run out of engagement. Nobody built anything, but we had an idea, so we were creative. Yeah, no problem. So, we've been 4 at the beginning. You know, one of them left after 2 months, living in the tent. He said he cannot stand it anymore. But 3 of us, you know, that was mine. So, in the evening at the bar, it was a complete game changer because we were living in the loft. And once, you know, this time we said, hey, you want to come into our loft? And the girls loved it. They all came, you know. At the door, they turned and left. So, there is the second tent, for example. Yeah. Privacy, you know. You cannot mock privacy. Either you have it or you don't. And just the fact you don't see some things doesn't mean you don't. 26. Yeah, wir machen ohne Interview. Sorry for that. After this, you know everything about me. So, yeah, okay. So, now it gets a bit more serious, you know. I moved into this apartment, and it's interesting because it's already something like maybe a role model for cluster housing, as you might know. So we've been actually 2, not 3 inhabitants, and each of us had like a living room and a space to sleep, and we were sharing kitchen and bathroom. You know, in the cluster living, you do it vice versa. You share the living room and you have your own private bathroom, which makes sense, I found out. Anyhow, so new role models of living typologies, I'd say I've learned. From the outside, typical Viennese, turn of the century building inside, typical architectural, yeah, you have to do some things, yeah. So, my friends from the loft, they're still my friends, even the one who moved out. So after that, I was fed up with living and sharing space, so I said, okay, I wanna live on my own, I'm old enough, I have to get serious, you know. So I found a nice apartment, really nice. I always called it gunshot because it's one room after the other, and it extends actually to quite a huge space once you open these double doors. But the cool thing about this was all of these rooms, even the storage space and the toilet and the bathroom, they had a window, which is quite remarkable, I think. And at that time, you know, I became serious, and I found out that light and air is really something we should keep an eye on. So this was the view. You know, it's Viennese Gürtel, probably not the most wonderful place in Vienna, but very urban. Otto Wagner, who built these old stations of the former Stadtbahn. Yeah. And you know, inside, I really felt comfortably by myself with my bicycle, me and my bike. Of course, you know, living a single life. Yeah. Anyhow, at that time, I met my future wife. And of course, she said, this is not a condition you can live. Yeah? So, I'm not going to move into this apartment. If you want to stay with me, find something. And we found something, actually paradise, really, on top of Lugner city. So those who know Lugner, he's like a Viennese celebrity, BC celebrity anyhow. So he had a huge shopping center, and on top of that shopping center, there was this tiny little apartment with a great terrace. And I remember whenever I had like interviews because of housing, blah, 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 people always asked me, how do you want to live? And I always said, my dream would be on top of the roof of a shopping center with a great garden and a tiny little caravan. So I found it, 100 square meters of terrace, really nice, wonderful. Even though the apartment was small, there was space for a lot of people. You know, it's the 2016 Italy versus Germany championship. 1-1, and then 6-5 after the penalty for Germany. A lot of German fans. I remember that because the day after we found out something. And that changes everything. Everything. All you've learned changes suddenly. What you define as luxury becomes, living on top of this shopping center wasn't good anymore, We wanted the garden. So we did an experiment. And we said, okay, let's move into this house. And the special about that house was there was an old lady living below our unit. And the lady used to be the owner of the house, and then she gave the house to her grandkids, and the grandkids sold the house with her to a developer. Kind of nice move. So she had life estate, it's called Wohnrecht. So the developer was hoping that she will move soon. We were hoping that she will stay long, and in my imagination, it was this kind of generation living, old and young. I thought, okay, Leopold will have like a granny or something. And the problem is, it was not voluntarily chosen. It was somehow forced. And I remember, we supported the lady, but she didn't really cope with that. And on the 24th of December evening, she told me, Mr. Spiegl, please get my laundry repaired. Because she always does on Monday laundry. So living together in communities is a great thing, but has to be voluntarily. It can never be forced, Well, so even inside, kids change a lot. So anyhow, I arrived at some point, obviously, a house and a garden, perfect. I learned so much in these 18 previous apartments, and I'm still not knowing what to do now, because if you do it for yourself, it gets really hard. Especially now, we're like 5 people, 3 kids. At some point they move out, the house gets too big, now it's too small, so it's really difficult to work for yourself. But of course it's a nice place, very, very happy, I have to say. Some things don't change at all, creative explosion, surprise one day in the morning, but actually kind of nice. And since the kids actually own the house, there's always a little place for myself to hide and disappear. So thank you very much.